Hello, everyone. It's your friend, your close personal friend that, you know what, you haven't spoken to in a while, and maybe you should call me up and see how I'm doing. I'm Joseph Craven. I'm joined by Ray Barnes here on, I had to pause for a moment to remember what the name of the podcast was, because I feel like I have recorded so many different podcasts, I've now forgotten that this is The Weekly Pessimist, brought to you by Running Out the Clock. Does that seem right to you? Does that sound right? Did I get your name correct? Are you who I think you are?
I am who you think you are. To all of the listeners out there, unlike you, I am the stranger that nobody knows.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I can make a name for myself this evening and, I don't know, give a little bit of insight.
Probably not. I'm not going to let you.
Okay.
We're here. Just so you're aware. This is The Weekly Pessimist. This is our series that, despite its name, is not truly weekly because, as in the case of most recently, I had been sick and unable to record podcasts because right now my voice sounds very smooth and honestly kind of sexy. But it had not sounded like this last week. It sounded much more like a demon had crawled into my throat, and I was just having to live with that. So anyway, the Weekly Podcast is the series where we try to cover things in the world of Mississippi State athletics. And what is more Mississippi State than losing to Alabama in something? And that's what happened. Basketball team travels to the weird Coliseum that Alabama calls home, ends up getting defeated in a game that was so strange. Peter Burns in the post-game broadcast started things off by going, "What did I just see?" Or "I don't know what I just saw. What a weird game." So it was just solid.
Peter Burns.
Just solid. I love the fact that that's just how he started off. He was just like, "Look, guys, I don't know what just happened." But of course, going back before that, I mean, you had a huge victory against Auburn. You had the one game of the I don't know. It didn't feel like a 20-point loss, but it definitely was the one game of the conference slate so far in which I feel like Mississippi State has just flat out been beaten against Kentucky. So you got this weird up and down pattern that's going on right now. Let's start with Alabama, though, and let's look at what's going on, what went on in that particular matchup. A 4-point loss was, pretty close to being just like a 2 or 3 point loss, if not for just typical late game free throws, whatever you may have there. But a weird one, a game that by all accounts, I don't know, it seemed like could have, should have, I don't know, been a Mississippi State victory. You watch how the game is played. You see the defense that the Bulldogs play. You see Reggie Perry and Robert Woodard doing what they're doing. But then it's still a loss. And it's like, well, how? What happened? You know what I mean? Like, what's your take on this game? Yep. This weird game.
I mean, it was a weird game. If you look at the numbers, just the straight up numbers, neither team played exceptional.
No.
Especially a lot of the little things. And typically that happens to State when they go to Coleman Coliseum to play. Neither team shot well. Neither team really, had a high assist to turnover ratio, anything like that. Free throw shooting.
Which is interesting because Alabama was not typically a team that turned the ball over a huge amount, and Mississippi State's defense was able to get them to it seemed like they lost the ball every possession, which I know was not the case, but it felt like it for a little bit in there.
Right. And even though Alabama was able to push it, to 14 points, it never really felt like they grabbed momentum until Avery Johnson did call a timeout to kind of stop a run that the Bulldogs were making, probably like 10 to 12 minutes to go in the game.
Yeah.
Where it did feel like he stopped some Bulldog momentum. But Yeah, even when they got up to that big lead, it didn't really feel like they had it very secure, which is what led to State kind of rallying and making it close in the end. But yeah, I mean, with everything that we've already said, it was a weird game. It was very strange. I don't know.
Man, I don't know. Yeah. One of the things that's going on right now, and this is interesting because ROTC co-founder Chandler Romblings texted me today. That is his last name, by the way, Romblings. He texted me today and was just like, so, being someone that obviously does not follow like Mississippi State closely and only sees the classic like social media overreactions. He's like, what does someone who tries to be more level-headed, such as yourself, think about the team right now? And I was just like, the sky is falling, all is lost, everyone, abandoned ship, all of that, all that classic rational things to say, but he did ask me, he's like, okay, so what's the take? And so I was like, well, they're a weird team. They just are. When conference play, like we get our hopes up at the beginning of conference play, obviously, because of the fact that up until then, and a couple of factors that stand out to me, up until then, like they had done very well in non-conference, but one of the things that was happening that seemed to be very good was shooting the ball. They were a good shooting team, which is in stark contrast to last season when they couldn't shoot anything. Like no one could shoot at all,
we were very close to dead last in the NCAA.
Yes.
In 3-point shooting.
Yep.
So we were bad last season.
Very, very close. In conference play, one of the things that I've noticed is that the shooting is just not really there right now. Does that seem like a fair assessment? I know it especially was against Alabama, but no one was shooting anything in Coleman last night at all.
No, it's actually kind of funny. I was listening to another podcast, maybe a little bit more successful, maybe a little bit more listeners than ROTC, but they did find a really weird split in games where Mississippi State has to play with a Nike basketball. They are shooting 23% from 3-point range.
What?
Now, obviously, most of those games are on the road, so you're probably not going to shoot as well on the road as you do at home. But we've played some neutral site games. The game when we played Clemson up in New Jersey earlier in the year, we shot the lights out of the ball, set a school record for threes made in the game.
Yeah.
So that was, for all intents and purposes, a road game. When we play in the Humphrey Coliseum, it's a Wilson basketball, and for some reason, we shoot the cover off of it. It's very strange. At Kentucky, it was a Nike ball. In Coleman, last night, it was a Nike ball.
So the Clemson game had a Nike ball, though?
A Wilson ball.
A Wilson. Oh, the Clemson game had a Wilson ball. Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't sure if you'd said who manufactured that one.
Yeah, just a really, obviously,
so weird.
Correlation doesn't equal causation, but
it might not equal anything, but that's still fascinating.
Yeah, that is fascinating. I don't know. Well, the whole reason how that question was brought up was that somebody asked Nick Weatherspoon in a post-game press conference what he, what might be contributing to some of the Bulldogs' shooting woes on the road, and he just answered the question, not giving an excuse or anything, but he said, man, that Nike basketball is slick, and we're not used to it. So wow. I don't know. Who knows?
That's super weird. I'd be very curious to see, if that actually is, I want to go get a Nike and a Wilson basketball now and, just test them myself. I mean, I can't shoot. I'm a terrible basketball, but, it'd be fun to at least hold them and be like, oh, yes, the Nike is slick.
Yeah, I see what they're talking about.
I don't even have to, buy the basketball. I'm just going to go to my nearest sporting goods store and just go like hold the basketballs in the aisle for a little while and be like, oh yes, it is slick.
Yeah, just walk into Academy and pick one up and just kind of pet it. Just put it back on the shelf.
Yeah, totally normal behavior in an Academy sporting goods store.
That's right.
Totally normal. There were, of course, bright spots through all this. We have seen, despite the poor shooting, and especially shooting from range, but we have seen so much growth out of the freshmen that I feel like we have to take a few moments to praise them a little bit. Perry and Woodard, we've already heaped praise on them on the podcast, so nothing is new there. But they are starting to hit on different levels. We saw against Alabama, you saw Perry really exert dominance, take control of the game in a lot of ways. Woodard, you saw hit some clutch shots, which is interesting because he had not necessarily shown the shooting touch as of much. They've mostly just shown their like physical ability. So these freshmen, have they done enough? Like if you were in charge of the lineup, do you put the freshmen in the starting lineup every game?
I think it's kind of come to a point where you have to kind of take a step back and just take a look at the beginning of SEC play up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really want to call anybody out, obviously, but
Eric. Oh, sorry, my bad.
Oh wait, no, I heard something. I don't know what that was. So the thing that somebody that is just watching the game, it's pretty easy to tell. I pulled up a couple of stats. We opened up on the road at South Carolina to start up SEC play. The leading scorer for the Gamecocks that night was Mike Kotsar.
Yeah.
Big 6'11" guy in the lane. On the season, he is averaging 8.5 points a game. He was their leading scorer that night with 25. He had a career high that night. Then moving on to when we played Ole Miss at home, Henson, for all intents and purposes, he's 6'7", listed as a guard, but you could probably describe him as a stretch four. He had his career
the way that they utilize him. Yes.
Yeah, correct. He had his season high with 26, and we just could not defend him. And then you go back to last night, Dante Hall, not known much as a scorer, but big defensive presence in the middle.
Athletic specimen too. That man can leap.
I mean, he had that one alley-oop dunk that was just unreal. He was the leading scorer for Alabama with 19 points. So there's a little bit of a trend in SEC play where, power forwards or centers that really don't score on us, and they score big. And it was pretty easy to see last night that, Eric Coleman, when he's in the game, for some reason, when SEC play started, just defensive awareness, not rotating on help defense, boxing out. It's different when Perry and Woodard are in the game. And they make their freshman mistakes, but Eric Coleman and Adu are making freshman mistakes.
Right.
So, and with Woodard and Perry, they bring a lot of toughness and strength. And Woodard, he's that classic glue guy as a freshman. He makes all the little plays. He's had a couple of huge blocks. And just effort. And you're just not getting a whole lot of effort, it seems, out of Holman right now. And good grief, Peters can give Adu the greatest pass imaginable 3 feet away from the basket, and it's just he's throwing it into a black hole. So I don't know what you do. Maybe not give them the start, but their minutes are increasing as the season goes along.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I don't know. Holman is regressing, and Perry is
improving dramatically. Yeah, on an almost nightly basis. I don't want I hesitate to necessarily heap too much of frustration maybe on Abdullah Due in particular, because as noted, Abdullah Due has not been playing basketball for very long either. He's a raw player. He's obviously uncoordinated in general, but obviously you have the limitations of the fact that he doesn't have much experience as of yet. Still doesn't. That's not the case with Holman. Holman, I think where the most frustrations come out of all of this with Eric Holman is that he came from he was like a 3A Mr. Basketball, like a finalist for Mr. Basketball in Kentucky or something like that.
Yeah, in Kentucky.
Yeah. So he obviously he was a high school standout. We know what he can bring, but we even know that non-conference, he looked like a dominant stretch four. He looked like a complete stretch four. He's always been a good athletic shot blocker, good timing, all that. He's always had all those tools. It's weird to see the conference play start and to see him struggle like he has. And that's why, it seems like that's why they really fed him the ball a lot at the beginning of the game against Alabama to try to give him some confidence or something like that, to show that the coaching staff isn't giving up on him. I don't know what it may be, but they gave the ball to Eric Holman a huge amount early in the game. But something in once conference play has started, something is just not quite right with him. And like you said, I'm not trying to heap blame on him. I'm not trying to play the blame game or anything like that. This is entirely we know he can do better. We've seen it. We've seen it. And that's why it's more concern than anything else. It really is. Because you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, Q Weatherspoon, he had kind of a mini dip in his production a couple of games ago, but he responded in that Auburn game.
Goodness, did he ever?
He really responded and showed a lot of senior grit and leadership. I'm sure that the coaching staff probably challenged him and he responded, but it just doesn't seem like that Holman is quite responding with the opportunities that he's been given. And I know that's got to be frustrating for him because he's got all the skills. He's got the length. He's got the body. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why there's some NBA scouts that are, I don't know where he's projected, but they're saying that he's got an NBA skill set. But it's just to quote Vic Schaefer, coach of the women's team, he doesn't look interested. Not that he's not into the game, but Vic Schaefer said about Tierra McCowan. She had a 28 point, 23 rebound game, and said, that's the kind of game that Tierra can have when she's interested. Yeah. And with Eric, I don't know. It's like these strange defensive lapses where, he doesn't rotate over on help side defense or just things that a senior doesn't typically do.
Right.
And there'll be a game, whether it's next game or the game after that, where he'll probably snap back out of it. And, it's weird to see a senior do something like that. Mm-hmm. But I've got hope in Eric. Like you said, we've seen him play to his full capability for goodness. This is year number 4 now. So we know he's got it in him, and it's a good thing that there's a freshman that can come in behind him and fill that void while he's going through it. But we'll see how on the road in Oxford Saturday, and see if he can snap out of it and get the Dogs back on the winning track again.
Yeah, and that's what I wonder if because he wasn't necessarily getting a huge amount of NBA talk before the season gets started, right? And then after the non-conference slate gets done, and he's really showing out, he's showing good post moves, but he's also showing a reliable three-point shot at 6'11" with good athleticism, good range. People are looking at that and saying, yeah, he's a true stretch four. We can work with that. And he's showing so much of that I wonder if there's something about that where he's looking ahead too much to maybe wondering himself, like, am I going to be, an NBA player? Like, do I actually have what it takes? Some people seem to think that I can do now. I wonder if there's some of that and that's affecting it, because if you think too much about that, you can generate a little bit of like a fear of messing up and blowing that, especially when you are a senior in a world where most of the NBA picks are going to be taken after 1 year in college, sometimes two. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I do wonder if some of that maybe is on his mind a little bit. It might not be. That's purely speculation.
Yeah, this is all conjecture. We're not trying to dive into the mind of Eric Holman or anything, but
right.
That could be something that maybe is on his mind. I mean, Lamar Peters had the same kind of, well, not the same kind, but people saying that, yeah, man, he's got a lot of his skills and his passing and ball handling ability, streaky shooter, but he's got the type of skills you want a point guard and NBA buzz and, test it out for scouts and everything. And, Lamar's been kind of hot and cold a little bit, but when he's on, he's on.
And there's a period of time in there. There's a stretch in which it looked like Lamar was trying to establish himself as the best player on the team, this season. He was trying to establish himself as, okay, yes, Q Weatherspoon is obviously the best player on the team and has proven that for years now. But, like, I can be the guy that the team can turn to. And he kind of rose to the challenge. And maybe if that's the same situation, we're just waiting on Eric to rise to the challenge as well. I'm sorry to cut you off there, but,
No, you are.
Just a quick observation.
You are good. We are on the same wavelength there.
So that being said, all right, going back to what Chandelier Wingdings had texted me earlier, ROTC co-founder Chandelier Wingdings had texted me earlier about like the thought, the process, the feelings on the season so far. One of the things I did point out, and we haven't discussed this. I mentioned it briefly in kind of a train of thought in a previous episode of the Weekly Pessimist. So I kind of want to hear your thoughts on it as well. But let's just look at the league as a whole right now. Okay. I think one of the things that's been affecting I'm trying to pull up the standings on it. There we go. The performance as a whole is that, well, the SEC is just good this year. They just are. Like, Tennessee, obviously very good, but like LSU performing really well. Kentucky, as mentioned, is the one team this season that just like flat out beat Mississippi State. The losses to South Carolina, like that was obviously a close one. The loss to Ole Miss, the loss to Alabama this week, like those could have all easily been Mississippi State victories, just as easily as they were defeats. So Kentucky, the only team that did that, but like South Carolina has done well in conference. Ole Miss has done well in conference. Alabama is the weirdest team of them all. Almost entirely off the fact that Alabama is a really, really good bad basketball team,
Yes, especially at home, especially in Coleman Coliseum,
especially at home. I mean, they did the same thing. Well, not the same thing, because they actually handled Ole Miss when they played Ole Miss, but they did the same thing to Ole Miss. Ole Miss climbs into the top 25 and goes to Coleman Coliseum, and Alabama's just like, hey guys, welcome.
Yeah, and they beat Kentucky, you know.
Yep.
They beat Kentucky at home.
So yeah, the league seems to be just good this year. And what went from, I think, and I'll let you jump in on what you're about to say, but I think one of the things that affected Mississippi State is that, we got through a non-conference and went, oh man, this is a team that the talent-wise, we look like we could be pushing for one of the top tier programs in the SEC this season. And then we get here and the SEC is a lot more even than we maybe thought. Does that seem accurate to you?
That seems, ask Auburn.
Right.
Auburn had a non-conference slate where, they lost, I think, a 2-possession game to Duke, neutral site game. And, really, I mean, they were at least top 10.
Yeah.
If not top 5. And then get into SEC play, and I think they've dropped 4 straight. Does that seem right?
I will look at it real quick to double check you. I'll be the fact checker. You can keep talking. I'll fact check.
Gotcha. Yeah. And LSU didn't get a whole lot of preseason hype around them. And I think they're undefeated.
They have one loss.
One loss? Okay.
Yeah. No, they don't. I'm sorry. No, they don't. They just have they currently are playing as we're recording, and that's why they're a game back from Tennessee.
Gotcha. Yeah, they got a 3-point lead on the road at A&M, it looks like.
Yeah. Auburn's playing right now, I believe, and they have lost 3 in a row.
3 in a row.
And they are currently beating Missouri 74-48 as we're recording. So they will probably win that game.
Yeah. And the league is a lot better than I think people thought. And I think this really goes back to you're really starting to see the fruit of the SEC getting serious about basketball again. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at the coaches that have been hired the past 2, 3, 4 years. Rick Barnes at Tennessee, he's got them on a roll. I don't really want to talk about Will Wade at LSU, but
because there's a slight chance Will Wade might have cheated tremendously as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bruce Pearl's back.
Yeah.
Auburn loses 3 straight, but he's got them in a spot that Auburn basketball hasn't been to in a while.
I mean, look at last season. Look at what they did. My goodness.
Right. It's just the league is serious about basketball again, and the talent is there. Kentucky is going to be a perennial, top 15 team, bringing in the talent they get. And I think everyone just kind of underestimated. It's kind of a logjam. South Carolina coming into conference play, maybe it was 7-8, or it was something, very, very average,
right?
Below average.
They looked like they could have been a doormat in the conference coming in.
Right, and talk about doormat. Ole Miss was picked dead last.
Right, exactly. Man, people did not expect Kermit to do what he's been doing.
No, he's got those players playing at a different level this season with, virtually the same team. He's got some freshmen playing big roles, but. Yeah,
almost entirely.
What else to say?
Crazy.
It's just better than people thought, and every game is going to be a dogfight, no matter where you're playing. And I'm saying a lot. This is bad radio.
How dare you, sir? Get on this amateur podcast that we do sporadically for fun, and stumble over your words. It's amateur week here on the Weekly Pessimist.
Yeah, you were exactly right. I just repeating what you were saying earlier. It's going to be a dogfight every game, and it would not shock me if the teams that finished 3rd through through 6th, all were within a game of each other with like 7 or 8 conference losses, honestly. Yeah, it's just a tough league.
It just is. It absolutely is. It's and that's one of the things that I think stands out. And that's why, like, when someone asks me, hey, look, if you were going to try to give like a fair, level-headed, not an instant reaction assessment of the season right now, because the people that are going to jump on social media and be very vocal, like the tweeting at players type of people.
Oh, man, that's
yeah. The worst people alive. That's the type, those are the people that don't approach it, don't rationalize it, just kind of, I don't know, just want to be heard, I guess. I don't know what it is. But anyway, if you're trying to look at it in a certain way, I still feel like good. Obviously, you don't like losing close games on the road to beatable opponents like Alabama. You don't like losing close games at home to beatable rivals like Ole Miss. You don't like playing 9:00 Eastern time zone games like against South Carolina. That trash. Still mad about that start time. This is the dumbest thing. Anyway,
it was ridiculous.
You don't like that, but I feel like it's okay. I feel like right now there's no reason to panic. I feel like I do not feel a need to panic when it comes to the things right now, because there's 3 losses that could easily have been wins, which is frustrating, but it's not the end of the season. It's only 1 loss that was just like flat out got beat, which is frustrating, but again, not the end of the season. But something does need to be fixed, obviously, So I don't know. What's your assessment right now when you look at the season entirely right now? How do you feel in terms of panic mode versus approaching it rationally?
Yeah, the panic button does not need to be pressed. The team is 15-5. If you're searching for, coming from the past 4 or 5 seasons, if you're searching for improvement and a team that can make it to the tournament in March, you can't press the panic button right now.
No, because the tournament was the goal. Like,
exactly.
Being top team in the SEC was not necessarily the goal. The goal was, this is our year to get back in the tournament for sure.
Exactly. And nobody was saying, yeah, we need to be a top 4 seed. We need to be, well, not top 4, but, we don't need to be a 4 seed in the tournament. It's been so long. I think that right. Asking for something like that is asking for a whole lot. I mean, obviously there's a lot of talent on the team, guys that have been around for several seasons. 15-5 right now. You just can't be. You can't press the panic button. Can you be concerned? Yes, if some of the things that we've talked about don't turn themselves around, but. Ben Howland knows what he's doing. He's been around the block before. If guys have earned a little bit more playing time, or maybe have earned a start, he'll make that adjustment. He sees a lot more than we do.
Yeah,
he's in there at practice with them every day. I would start to get a little bit concerned if some of the games. Where you look at it and say, we need to win that game. And we don't come out with those wins. If we had lost to Vanderbilt on the road,
right.
And then followed that up, with our Alabama performance, I'd be a little worried, but the team has shown enough, that when that switches on, what they can do. That they can make the tournament. So, you can't press the panic button at 15-5. There's still so much more left to play. You don't look at a baseball team, with a guy. You don't look at a baseball team and look at it game by game because you only have as much momentum as the next day's starting pitcher. So you only have the momentum is the performance that we come out with the next game and how we look. And I mean, we could come out with a 12-point win on the road in Oxford, and everything is awesome. Eric Coleman played a great game, went 4 for 5 from 3, had a double. Or
I'm liking the sound of this. Keep describing it. No, I'm in on that. Your mental image is exactly what I want to happen.
But just as easily we could drop a 3-point loss, and but showed that we played well, and some of the things that we talked about have been improved, and still be pretty optimistic. But there's just a lot more left to play, and see if some of the things that have been our bugaboos get changed. And I got confidence in the coaching staff that they can point those things out and work on them.
Yeah, I'm with you on that for sure. I'm absolutely with you on that, because this is, and I wonder if there's a part of it that, like, living in the Deep South, living in football country, we're kind of conditioned to overreact to one loss,
Yeah. Sure.
Because, you get one loss and your football season's done for in college football. That's just how it is. Like, you get one loss, you are done. And that's not it in basketball. Like, you get a loss, oh, that's too bad. Like, you might drop down in the polls a couple of spots, but as long as you're hitting on all cylinders, this is the time to have some issues. January is the time to have some issues, to have some struggles, some slumping play. Like, this is the time you do that, because you want to fix all that so that the time mid-February and into March rolls around, you're hitting on all cylinders again, which is what happened, barring like the SEC tournament itself. That's what happened to Mississippi State last season. Into the season well, and then, did what they did in the NIT. So that's, you cannot look at one loss immediately and go, that's it. Oh my gosh, it's a different thing. But that's what we tend to do, which is so weird to me.
Especially Mississippi State fans.
It's true.
We can be some of the worst sometimes, and some of the how should I say it, pessimistic.
Yeah, exactly. There's a reason for the tongue-in-cheek name of this podcast. Yeah. Oh man. Real quick before we actually wrap things up here on the Weekly Pessimist, you mentioned baseball teams. Did you get your season or baseball announces ticket initiatives, season ticket purchasing or individual game purchasing, all that sort of stuff? Email? Because I just got one.
Give me one moment, sir, and I will see if I got that. Actually, I think I got that earlier today. Actually, let me see.
Yeah, I got it at 6:43 p.m. today. According to this.
I didn't get it, but there's a great sale on coffee end tables on Wayfair.
Well, let me delete this email and get on to the real emails.
Hey-o.
What have I been looking at?
Yeah, somebody's got to pay for that mansion of a stadium.
I know it. General admission season tickets, $199 for the general public. I would take that in a heartbeat. You kidding me?
Man, if I wasn't 6 hours and 15 minutes away, I would strongly consider it. Love going to Duty Noble.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's one of the things that the rest of the ROTC crew are not baseball people, and I'm admittedly not the biggest baseball person in the world, but there are few things in life that I enjoy more than a nice sunny day at the ballpark, just sitting down and just kind of forgetting everything for a while. You know what I mean? Like, it really is an escaping experience.
Yeah, the baseball park is a bubble that blocks out a lot of things, a lot of worries that can tend to, drive your life. It really blocks a lot of that stuff out. So, and State does a really good job of making that experience really memorable, and they put a lot of effort, into the baseball program. So, hope a lot of people buy those season tickets and fill those seats up. It's going to be a good season again, and got a lot of promise from that run in the postseason last year. So we'll see if Jake Mangum and the boys can make another run to Omaha.
Absolutely. It's going to be exciting. I'm going to try to get up to more games this season because the new dude it was impressive last year when it was half finished.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's insane to me. So it's going to be really, really great to get in there once again. Really looking forward to that. And we'll have more to talk about when baseball season comes around, obviously. But as of right now, we're still in basketball. We're still doing well. Still a good team, The recent finishes against Kentucky and Alabama, notwithstanding, still a good team with still plenty of the season ahead of us. Obviously, at Ole Miss, LSU is going to be difficult. Then we get, Kentucky at home. 3 very difficult matchups in a row. You would think there'd be some relief. You never know because Alabama comes to visit, and you never know what you get out of Alabama. But hopefully Alabama at home's winnable. You've got Arkansas, who's just, I don't know. Maybe if there's one, if you're talking about teams in the league that aren't doing too well, Arkansas's got to be in the consideration just because of their 12-8 overall record and all that. But again, it's Arkansas, and it's at Arkansas, and it's a terrible place to go. So who knows? But basketball team's still good. Baseball looking promising. We get past. We can just forget that other sport that happened in the fall, and it looks like we're good to go. Good time. Good times. Whew. All right. Well, that is it for this episode of The Weekly Pessimist here on Running Out the Clock. Stay tuned. We did a little live stream. Here's a quick plug on some of the stuff going on ROTC, but we did a little live stream earlier this week where we were simulating some stuff on Madden to try to make the Raiders good. But in the process of this live stream, we actually talked a little bit about the Alliance of American Football, which it was a pretty fascinating little discussion, I think. Just a quick note about how it seems to be a very player-centric league, which I think is pretty interesting. Considering all the scrutiny the NFL tends to get under for ignoring player safety or not caring for players as a whole. I don't know. It'll be interesting. But we're actually going to start talking a lot about the AAF on ROTC now that college football season's done, and we don't have those large discussions to have. It seems like it would be the next logical topic to cover. So that's what we're going to go with.
Yeah, right? Sure.
Why not? Oh, man. So, that's going to wrap up this episode, I think, of The Weekly Pessimist. But stay tuned for some AAF programming. Go like us on Facebook. We have a Running Out the Clock Facebook page. You'll be able to find that if you aren't already a fan. And that has a link, actually, to the YouTube channel that has our recent live stream. And we'll continue that experiment with the Oakland Raiders at some point in time. I suppose that's it. Grafe, thanks for jumping on this episode. I appreciate your insight, and Hail State to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hail State to you too. And we'll see what we can do this weekend in Oxford, and maybe old Chandelier Rom-Com can have some insight as well on the Welcome to the Tad Pod,
which is the best podcast name ever.
I can't get over it. It's
so good. And you know who came up with it actually? Was Roe. We're in this group text and we're all in the ROTC, the main ROTC group chat, and we're all trying to come up with what the best possible name would be. And Roe just pops in and just refers to it as the Tad Pod. And we all went, oh. Chandler's actual response was, I don't like it. I love it.
As he should have done. That is fantastic.
So, yeah, we thought that was so good. But anyway, yeah, Chandler has been killing it. Obviously, there's really no sense in plugging an Ole Miss podcast on a Mississippi State podcast, but whatever. But Chandler has been killing it. He's had Sam Mooney jumping into episodes with him. Sam Mooney is an Ole Miss guy, and as well also a talented musician in the Mississippi area. Plays all over the state, up and coming singer-songwriter in Mississippi. So pretty cool to have him associated with ROTC. We're going to try to pull as much of that street cred as we possibly can.
Hey, bring it on. I don't have my street cred, but if you can get that, hey, more
it's all right.
ROTC.
You got the Chick-fil-A cred, and that's what really matters.
I am the Chick-fil-A prophet.
This is the Weekly Pessimist. I'm your friend Joseph Craven, and we'll see you next time.